John, I think we're all set.
Well, good morning, afternoon, and evening to all. When we turned the page of our Gregorian calendars to 2020, about 10 months ago, I expressed in one of these teleconferences my hope that this would be a year of clear 2020 vision. I can't say things have worked out that way, but I think we could all say at this point that we've seen a few things this year. We've seen examples of real people acting in selfless altruism and virtuous character. And we've seen the absence of these in dark, self-centered depravity and distortion. Human nature in the raw is on open display more than ever. The worldwide coronavirus pandemic, social discord, unrest, violence in places all over the globe, intensely fought, polarized political battles, just for examples, are more fired up every day, it seems. We're told the Earth's polar ice is succumbing to the heat faster than ever. In just days, Americans will elect a president, the country's chief executive, to preside over the nation for the coming 4 years. According to political opinion polls, US voters are widely and distinctly divided. People around the world are watching this hotly contested and quite likely very unusual election. For this little time we have now, however, I hope we'll lift together out of the noise and chaos of this man-made world and be together in consciousness in a place apart, a place of stillness and peace, where no hearts are troubled and where fear cannot reach. The voice of the beloved sounds in each of our individual hearts and minds, saying, "Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away." Here in this place, the air is sweet and the light is clear and fine. In this atmosphere, we may more clearly see and understand, because we're not looking with earthly eyes alone, but with spiritual vision. And so we see not only the forms of things, but their invisible essences. This is heavenly perspective. Whatever we see is new and alive with meaning. In this context, I was looking at some of the words that are on many people's minds these days, maybe especially in the United States in this election cycle. And I realized every day is election day. The word elect comes from a Latin root that means just what we'd think it should, to choose. Preside is defined in one dictionary as to occupy a place of authority or control, to act as president or chairperson. That interesting word, authority, has the same source as author, namely originator, progenitor, literally he who begets. And its root source means increase. The original meaning of preside from Latin is to sit in front of. By the way, the word nation comes from Latin and Old French, and it is the past participle of to be born. So if we look at these words anew, we might well ask ourselves, who do I elect to preside over my nation? On every election day, every moment actually, I choose what governs what I do and say, think and feel, all that is born through me, my nation. Indeed, I elect who sits in front of my world, my identity, in other words. I elect who is in power. In a representative democracy, we say, we the people elect the government. In America, this isn't quite politically correct, since we actually elect electors who in turn elect the president. But we're fond of the idea that the American people elect the president of the nation. And in the USA, historically, that's usually been true, but not always. The root of the word govern means to steer, as in to steer a ship. And it carries the meaning to rule by right of authority. Americans are also fond of saying that in political elections, we choose our leaders. That's mostly a warm illusion, since we the people haven't all that much say in who gets to run or stand for election. More importantly than that, precious few politicians prove to be real leaders. To lead is to go before or with, to show the way. The root of lead means to go, precede, to go before, to move before, to introduce. How often a hopeful populace is soon disillusioned by the shortcomings of elected leaders who turn out to be beholding to the people who paid the most to help get them elected. A mentor of years back, Bill Bahan, used to say that becoming disillusioned isn't a bad thing, since it means you get rid of your illusions. From above the little world of human affairs in which all this seems so important, we immediately recognize that there is and always has been an all-powerful government ruling the cosmos. The Earth and our sibling planets stay in their orbits around the sun, and the solar system moves in its course in the galaxy, and so on. It's humanity that generally lacks the understanding that we really are part of all this, and that we are here to govern this world in the name of the one who elected us. Being mostly lost in space on this score, human beings imagine that we have to govern ourselves without regard to the true government. And we make an unholy mess of things. Humankind is so divorced in consciousness from the government of God that the very idea is considered fiction, or is simply not thinkable at all. Let's remember the original mandate. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it. And have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." Mankind was and still is elected to have dominion, to preside over the earth, to govern as God's proxy. For far too long, however, humanity has refused to serve. Who's willing to man up or woman up and assume the role we were and are created to play? Our mandate wasn't just in the beginning, it's now. What replenishes the earth? To replenish is to fill, to make full or complete again, to restore what's missing. Well, how in heaven's name can human beings do that for the earth when what's missing is man himself. The earth is replenished when humankind is restored as the government of God. The current world of human experience is artificial. Artificial means contrived by humans as opposed to natural. Artifice is guile. Guile is defined as insidious cunning in attaining a goal, crafty or artful deception, duplicity. Human beings are duped into believing in an artificial self, in an artificial world. It's make-believe. And it's terribly fragile. What controls in the man-made world? For one thing, most people are aware that that several thousand man-made satellites orbit the planet in the near edges of space. And they constantly bathe the Earth in electromagnetic radiation. Through this artificial radiation, so much in our daily lives is controlled. Communications, electrical generation and distribution, banking, aircraft and other transportation means, military operations, you name it. If this electromagnetic array were to be thoroughly disrupted, most of the mechanisms of modern life would no longer work. No cell phones, no internet, no television, no GPS, no debit or credit cards. Most newer model automobiles wouldn't function. An aircraft would be unable to fly. Not many people wish to look at how very frail and fragile the man-made world is. And what's made the human world go round throughout history? One big answer is money. Money and the power that can be wielded through it are fundamental motivators and drivers in human experience. What makes sense as a medium of exchange became the artificial means for exerting control and false government. On US coins and bills, it's stamped or printed, "In God we trust." Those may be well-meant words, but they're empty words. What people actually put their trust in is the dollar, or in the euro, the pound, yuan, peso, rand, or yen, or whatever the case may be. Most money these days is an electronic bookkeeping entry anyway. What's in your bank account? The world's monetary system works mostly on trust and belief. And right now, this is a very good thing. Just imagine the utter chaos otherwise. A few months ago, when the pandemic began, lots of people in the US were frantically snatching up toilet paper. Even a disruption that small to so-called normal life brought out the darker side of human nature in some. But from this heavenly place apart, where we gather now, we see it all differently. We're unmoved, untroubled, unafraid. Our minds can never figure out how things should go. And we're sufficiently wise to not try. Nothing that truly matters is at risk. When it's personally true that in God I trust, I know with certainty that all is well. Those who live in the seat of true government provide the means on earth for the same control that governs the cosmos to operate in the human world. A barely adequate measure of true control has been and is maintained in human affairs, and through a very few people. It's allowed time, for one thing, for the elect to be gathered, to come into position to preside. We remember that the elect are gathered from heaven on earth. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. We are his angels. As the beloved speaks within our own hearts and minds, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. So we in turn extend the same invitation to all with spiritual ears to hear. This is what we are doing right now in this Zoom assembly. In the book of Revelation, where the reestablishment of true government is described, it's said the man-made world, called Babylon the Great, is fallen. In the midst of that chaos, an angel in a loud voice says, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. The soft poetic invitation to rise up, my love, is restated here. Now, as a compulsion. Come out of her, my people. So may we let this be the issue that we vote yes on every election day. I would invite any who wish to add to the conversation. Please feel free.
John, there is a mighty voice, one voice. It went through your vocal cords, but it is because of the agreement. It is one voice of many people. And it has gone forth in the strength and the glory of those who know that they sit in front of that power. And the power flows through. The dominion of love presides as we know with all our being, our calling.
David, this is, I'm sorry, John, this is Millie, and I was just so grateful for the tone of your words today, and that there are so many that have been called from all the four corners of the earth, and that this body is intact. The Lord's body reigns yet on earth, because there are those of us who have been so blessed to know what we know, to be able to stand within our enemies, but to not be afraid, but to stand sure and to serve not mankind, but to serve our Lord and King, because it is only as our polarity is centered upwards that then the body of mankind can be truly served. So I do thank you with all my heart for drawing together what you have on this glorious day.
John, I would second that. It has been a wonderful privilege to share with you in this way, and all those who have participated online with us. There is power in our words together. And Ron and I have just come back from an amazing few days up at the Medicine Bow National Forest, where we spent some time camped next to some friends that have just been coming close, because there is this sense of resonance with what we are about. And they don't have to have any idea about the words that we use, but there is this spirit of togetherness and the power of what we are about together and the love that we share. And they offer something in their own realm through service. It may be some religious or helping others in their way, but they sense the power of their togetherness and what it is that they have offered to us and with us. And I just marvel at what we do together. Every other Sunday, there is this obvious coming together because we love the one the one who sent us. And we did elect to do his work on earth in this time. And I'm so thankful that you're bringing this to focus now as we enter into what we call this election time. Because indeed, the world is watching what it is that we offer in this country at this time. And to not be controlled by the politics is so precious. So I join you and all the others on the line, and maybe those who couldn't make it, to really hold the line and love our Lord God with all. Thank you, John. This has been wonderful.
Thanks, Shirley.
John, this is Bill in Atlanta. I definitely had the experience of speaking with you today. I appreciate what you've given voice to, but it's a collective voice. It's one voice that speaks together, that we live in a place apart where there is peace and the knowing of spiritual communion, one with each other. And so this is the invitation that is extended to our world to live in this sacred place. It's so obvious in these days that this is the only way a new world can be known. There is no other way. And it's become so obvious in the political shenanigans that go on around election time. So it's good to experience this collective knowing with all of you. And thank you, John, for our time together. I elect the government of God. What else is there?
Thanks, Bill.
John, if one sentence stood out to me in this hour, it is when you said, nothing that truly matters is at risk. And I know we're all aware of the political situation here and probably elsewhere, and the pandemic and the economic collapse and so much on and on and on that seems very risky and destructive and terrifying. I know. There's a lot of fear, even in my little end of the road community. But to know that nothing that truly matters is at risk certainly relieves that pressure or that desire to panic along with the rest of the world, baby. And that's what in part sets the elect apart from this election. It's what the difference is. I'm thinking of how we were told that the elect aren't picked out and appointed, they choose themselves. Just like each of us here this morning together as friends and family, we chose to be here and we had to take certain steps to come. And we do it every couple of weeks because there's just nothing more precious than meeting together in spirit, in the vibrational arc, as friends, as family. How precious that is. And so we know we are blessed among all people to know that nothing that truly matters is at risk. From age to age, love's word rings forth. The truth is true. All is well. Unconquerable life prevails. You always remind us of that, John. It's one of the reasons I love you. Thank you.
And I would add that, John. That is a big reason to love you, but I really appreciated you bringing in the necessity of the immediacy of the moment, that this election process is a moment by moment practice, and a deliberate one at that. It is said that even the elect shall be deceived, which indicates to me that this requirement of diligence, moment to moment, in what we choose is really paramount. So I would just concur with Suzanne and that beautiful poem, "The Truth is True and All is Well." There is something that we know that is in control ultimately, and that's what truly matters. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah.
John, this is Aaron Malin. Am I being heard?
Yes.
John, I'd like to relate to you a short story from last week. I had lunch with a close friend and coworker, and he has been experiencing quite a bit of fear in these odd times we're going through. And he is well-educated, extremely capable at what we do. And it was sort of odd for me to experience his level of fear through this lunch we had together. And many thoughts ran through my head. I wanted to help him with his fear. I wanted to share with him some of the things that I feel and know to be true. But because of his particular level of consciousness, he's a very cerebral man, but not a very spiritually oriented man. I knew that if I started to share with him the things that I know to be true, it could lead to a polarizing of his experience with me as a friend. And then, of course, I would have no influence on him at all. So instead of saying anything, I just sat and listened to him, and I didn't agree or disagree. I just welcomed what he had to say and held it inside myself in a space of love. And by the end of this lunch, this lovely lunch, we parted, and there was nothing really said. But what I know to be true is that he did feel a sense of calm afterward, and a little bit of peace came into his heart and his mind. And it's just that secret service that we often talk about, being aware of what it is that we do, but also being sensitive to those around us and what it is that they can handle and cannot handle. And I just appreciate what it is that you say and what you bring, and giving me the space to relate that story. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Aaron.
Hi, John. Want to thank you so much for your wonderful consideration this morning. And I appreciated how you, as an author, looked at the meaning of words and saw the meaning that lies behind our usual superficial use of many words, and the significance of so many words in the English language, for instance. And I too have thought about the fact that this is 2020. What an unusual number that names this year, 2020, that relates to vision. And I think the same process has been offered to us, to, as you were illustrating with words, to actually look at things this year and to see what's behind everything. The forms are rather unusual. And I think we've had the opportunity of seeing, as you mentioned, the essences that are actually presenting themselves to us this year. And the only way we see things is to actually turn the light on. And I think that's how we can use 2020, by being the radiance that we are, and to use that radiance to see further and to shine through it. So I think this has been an amazing year. And I think you really caught something that we do share in seeing things in a radiant way that reveals the vision and allows the people to thrive and not to perish. So thank you, John. really appreciated your words.
Thank you, Anne. Not wanting to cut off anyone else who may wish to speak, but perhaps we're rounding our little time to completion. Among ourselves, those of us who regularly gather for these Zoom teleconferences, there's a number of levels of things that are naturally transpiring. But at the highest and finest place, we sit presiding over a vast world of connections that we each have and offer God's love to bathe the world. These times being together aren't especially for the speaker to say edifying things and for everyone else to be entertained. It's truly a time of a unified radiation. And that's what makes this meaningful. And in that is great power. Great power that blesses the world. Great power that is government at work and brings change. Creative change, not chaotic change. So when a speaker says, well, it's always good to be together, you really, really mean it. Thank you all.
Thank you, John, and thank you, one and all, for your focused attention and creative participation today. We'll gather again in 2 weeks on Sunday, October 25th, with Larry Krantz. A transcript of today's presentation, as well as many of the considerations by other presenters, are available at toneoflife.org. You're welcome to enliven the website in the comment section called In Your Words. Over and out.
Thank you.